Friends, I am certain you are well aware the world, it's gone SUV crazy. So much so the likes of Bentley, Maybach, Lamborghini, Porsche, soon Ferrari, and even Rolls-Royce all make very large baby buggies that are incredibly expensive. Which begs the question, should a tuning firm that has been run by the same family since its inception in 1965, that has a total worldwide output of 2,000 cars annually, be making SUVs? So it wasn't that long ago you and I drove that stunning Alpina green B7, which had a 4.4 twin turbocharged V8. This has the exact same engine. However, the output is a bit higher here. 612 horsepower comes in at 5,500 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 6,500 RPM, and 590 pound-feet of torque comes in at 2,000 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 5,000 RPM. Now, the obvious question is, how does it make more output than a regular derivation of this N63 engine? Well, the first stop would be the turbochargers. They increase the size of the turbines. They're 2.1 inches in diameter. Then, like the B7, they spend a lot of engineering effort changing how the engine is cooled. Like, for example, the intercoolers are Alpina specific here. Then they add not one, but two external water coolers. Then this does, like the B7, drive all four wheels through the ZF 8-speed torque converter automatic. However, in this Alpina application, it has a larger transmission oil cooler that is not on the regular X7. Now, there is one more change as it pertains to the engine, and that would be the Alpina-specific exhaust. This one is almost identical to the exhaust we saw in the B7 sedan, so that would mean it's lighter weight, it's designed to reduce the back pressure, and it has adjustable baffles. Then there is that annoying fact that this is indeed an SUV, which means it has to do things other Alpinas, at least in the US, have never had to do before, namely towing, 7,500 pounds, 0 to 60 for a very large SUV, 4 seconds. VMAX, 180 miles an hour. However, I'm going to give you an asterisk there, and we'll have to come back to it later, specifically in the options game. You are not going to believe this. 5,860 pounds, depending on how you express your weights and measures, 2,658 kilograms. With that, in Sport Plus. Oh yes, it is good to be back in an Alpina. Man, this thing pulls like a freight train. God, it is quick. No, this is fast. There is so much power, I would say, as low as 1,500 RPM, and really comes alive somewhere between 2,500 RPM and about 3,500 RPM. I would argue that power, specifically between that 2,500 and 3,500 mark, makes for incredible passing power. This is a vehicle one would want to go long distances in. Like, I could drive to San Francisco. Actually, not that I'd want to go to San Francisco right now. Maybe I'd want to drive to Vail, Colorado in this thing. Now, there are more engineering changes from the folks at Alpina to the underpinnings than even underneath the hood of the XB7. Let's start with the suspension system. Now, specifically the dampers, they come from the X7, but they're tuned specifically by Alpina. Then the bushings are all specific from the folks at Alpina. Then there are the wheels. There are two different wheels on offer. There is a 21 that's fitted as standard, and then there is this stunning 23-inch wheel, which is magnificent to look at because it takes its design from the original Alpina 20-inch wheel, and here it is finished in an anthracite color. Really makes the vehicle, even with this very odd color. Then there are the brakes, 15.5-inch diameter rotors in the front and 15.7-inch diameter rotors in the rear. So yes, I just told you there are larger brakes in the rear than in the front. Speaking of the front, the calipers, 4 pistons in the front. Then do you remember our BMW X5M competition episode where we talked about all that additional bracing that is attached to the bottom of that vehicle to increase the structural rigidity of that vehicle? Well, the Alpina engineers have their own take here. There's 2 additional braces in the rear that start from just the front of the rear suspension and go to the rear of the vehicle. Then there's 2 additional braces underneath the hood. Now let's put this all together and discuss the adjustable ride height. And the first stop there would be the use, as this thing was intended by BMW, not Alpina, as a sport utility vehicle and doing something practical like loading heavy items in the rear. There, one can adjust the load height by 2 inches. However, usable ride height as the vehicle is driving, that's 1.6 inches. Now, it's parked in comfort mode, so this is the normal ride height. But let's say for the sake of discussion, I'm either switching to sport mode, which an X7 has, or going over 100 miles an hour, the vehicle will lower 0.8 of an inch. However, in Sport Plus mode, which the X7 does not have, or above 155 miles an hour, which I don't know how many people are going to do that in this vehicle, it will lower the full 1.6 inches. While we're down here, I do need to discuss the practical impact of 2 of the changes we have discussed thus far throughout this episode. The first would be the wheels. It would stand to reason at 23 inches, almost the size of something that would come off of a covered wagon back in the day. The ride quality would suck. And it turns out that is not the case. The wheels do not impact the ride quality. In fact, we will spend some time talking more about this later. And then there's all that extra cooling system. And this is something that I thought I noticed just on that specific B7 we drove previously, where after driving it very aggressively, you walk away from that car and that car makes a lot of cooling noises, more so than other cars I have driven aggressively. This does the exact same thing. Now, in addition to all of that, there are 2 additional changes, one from BMW and one from Alpina. First, the one from BMW, which is the addition of a 4-wheel steering system. We've seen that in many other BMWs, so it's kind of similar here. Can turn the rear wheels up to 2.3 degrees in the opposite direction of the front wheels, or if it's going over a certain speed, in the same direction as the front wheels. Then, one of the biggest changes from Alpina is the addition of an active electronic limited slip differential. Well, that is indeed a number of changes in a vehicle that is not supposed to be doing turns like this, especially with this kind of stability. Speaking of stability, I am noticing a bit more intrusion from the stability control system here than in other BMWs with this kind of a tune. That is unusual. It's come up a couple of times as I've pushed it aggressively here and getting ready for this shoot. Now, safety doodads aside, the other thing you notice when you push this thing aggressively, incredible control over all planes of motion. And in this car, it is much harder to do that because you have all that extra weight we talked about. And the control is unusually good. Of all the improvement to the different planes of motion, the thing that stands out to me the most is the lack of squat and dive here, which you would get in a vehicle that is this long. But the combination of the control over the pitch as well as the extra wheelbase here, because remember, this is one of the longer SUVs that, actually it is the longest SUV that BMW makes, and that helps to make this vehicle do what you are seeing it's doing, and it really shouldn't do that. You guys should know the drill by now with Alpinas. Most of the changes are the underpinnings or underneath the hood. However, they do go through and they make some understated changes to the interior as well as the exterior. This one is no exception, and no, it's not just the change in the wheels. Like, for example, there is a body kit on this Alpina, a much deeper air dam, and one of the things it really is successful in doing is minimizing how large that schnoz is. Then to complement that, they add deeper side skirts and a completely different rear diffuser. That's when we notice an additional change with that exhaust. It doesn't go underneath the bumper like an X7, it goes through the bumper and has different chrome tips. Then, by far the best changes to my eye are contained within the vehicle. First and foremost would be the Alpina specific Lavalina leather wrapped steering wheel, and then that steering wheel has the Alpina blue and green stitch, and then they change the gauges. So it's the same graphics from BMW, but they use the green and blue graphics, and they get into the green and blue when you go into Sport or Sport Plus mode. And then one of my favorite changes, the Alcantara headliner is fitted as standard, and here it's in this light gray that picks up on the ivory interior, really knocks it out of the park. And then there is the wood. What's fitted as standard is a myrtle wood finish. It's a gloss finish, but there's like almost an orange hue to it, and they have the Alpina logo contained within the wood. It is stunning. However, the other option is a piano black finish. This is not good. But then for a first, they're offering with this vehicle, I don't know if it's on the B7 as well, a new wood finish that's a black walnut. And what they're doing there, it's a black wood, but it's an open pore, so it's like a matte finish, and that again is only from Alpina. Can I make the suggestion, can we do like the matte finish open pore wood, but with like the myrtle color or whatever that myrtle wood is? Because that is what makes an Alpina. Another area I like to check in on with these very high performance SUVs, especially the larger ones, are the brakes, because it's more important here than say in like an AMG or M sedan. Not only do you have the extra weight, but you also have the higher center of gravity. And here you would expect from an Alpina good pedal modulation and good brake power, which you get. But oddly, and I'd say somewhat surprisingly here, there is so much stopping power in this vehicle that driving it around town, you'd almost say it borders on grabby brakes. I wouldn't say it's a bad thing here, but makes it work incredibly well when you do drive it aggressively. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the options game with today's contestant. Something incredibly special. Only the second time we have featured an Alpina in a round of the game. This one, the 2021 Alpina XB7. And can I just say, this is the first Alpina SUV in North America for $141,300. To that we add the color. This is not an Alpina color. This is a BMW individual color. It is called Amatrin Metallic, or Amtrin, I don't know how to pronounce it, but either way, it's dark purple on an Alpina. May I suggest, if you're going to spend the extra money for an Alpina, you get an Alpina color, like the beautiful blue, or Santa Maria Madre de Dios, that Alpina green that we saw in that B7, that would be well worth the money, better than spending $1,950 for purple paint. Then contrasting that incredibly odd choice of an exterior paint color, a full merino leather interior in ivory white, $1,500. May I add that this car, which does not have a lot of miles, is already showing some darkness in the driver's seat from people wearing jeans. May I suggest no ivory white. Then the 23-inch Alpina wheels. Now remember at the top of the episode, I said to you that we have to come back to this. Well, that 180 mile an hour VMAX, that's only with the standard 21-inch wheels. Now BMW did not share with me how much slower the VMAX is with the 23s, but one could look at the 23s and say it's probably worth it, and I would say it's also worth $2,600 extra dollars. Then the 5-zone climate control, not 4-zone. 4-zone is standard, it means front and rear and side to side, front and rear. This has an additional 5th zone for the 3rd row. That is an additional $800. Then, believe it or not, it's a $140,000 vehicle that comes with a bench seat as the 2nd row. If you want the captain's chairs, which I would think you'd need in an Alpina, that's an additional $850. Then the Sky Lounge LED panoramic sunroof. This is not the sunroof. This is the lighting in the sunroof, stunning at night, well worth it, for $750. Then, being this is an SUV, you probably need the screens in the back for the Rugrats, which would set you back an additional $2,200. May I make a suggestion? Don't buy the screens. Go to your local Apple store, buy 2 iPad Pros, meaning real, like almost computers, that would be less than $2,200. And then the most important option, the Bowers and Wilkins stereo system. Now the Harman Kardon that comes with it is pretty good, but this is an Alpina, you need a kick in stereo, even if it is an additional $3,400. And then the only other thing we add to that is the destination handling from the exotic port of call of Greenberg, Spartanburg, South Carolina for $995. Now for the avoidance of doubt, the wheels and some of the other Alpina bits are handmade in Germany. And then that brings us to the full retail price of $156,345. In order to better understand this Alpina, we need to put it aside for just a minute and go back to the regular X7 we drove, the one with the V8 engine. They're really good ride quality and good driving dynamics, but I couldn't help but feeling that was a BMW, but it didn't drive like a BMW. It was more luxurious, what it was trying to go for in terms of the ride quality. But here, this is a complete departure from any basic X7. This drives like a BMW. It drives like a good BMW. But here's the thing, by changing all of the suspension or tuning the suspension, clearly improves the driving dynamics and also improves the ride quality. I would argue the ride quality is better here than in the basic X7 around town. That's something I wasn't expecting moving to the Alpina version. So this exercise proved to be a bit of a surprise. You see, before the car turned up, I fully expected to be standing here at the end of the episode telling you, as lovely as this is, my Alpinas, I prefer them to be in sedan form. And while that still may be true, I am shocked how competent this thing is. I would go so far as to saying it is one of the best, if not the best, large performance SUVs on offer today. Dynamically, it is significantly better than a GLS 580. And from a ride quality perspective, it is better than a GLS 63, which is saying a hell of a lot. Now, the wish list, I don't have that much to add here because of how good the vehicle is. Obviously, no purple colors, and some open pore wood would be great. The only thing I would ask for, I know this is a huge ask, and BMW is only dipping their toe in this water, is a 48-volt electrical system for no other reason than I'd like to see some more reliability, at least long-term reliability, built into the vehicle. Yeah, the instantaneous torque from an electric motor would be great, but it's more about reliability when it comes to a high-feature V8 that I think this could benefit from. Is there anything else we should add to this wish list? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I do want to leave you with one thing. I started this episode posing the question, should the folks at Alpina be in the SUV business? And I don't know if you and I are qualified to answer this, but apparently the answer is absolutely yes, because the 2020 model year of this vehicle was completely sold out. So much so, people like me couldn't drive them. Like BMW was like, hey man, we can't even give them to you because we got so many people that want these things. So I guess the answer is yes. Until I see you next time, bis später.